Good morning. I want to see if you're still awake. No, that was absolutely fascinating. And it really set me up very nicely because the charter given to me by MR was 2.5 words. AI for India. Ye kya hai? That's a very imprecise direction. So I said that I have to sexy this up a little bit. I'm a marketing guy. So we need, and one of the things that I think India has done a really good job with the government policies is they've come up with very nice verbiage, very nice terms, Aadhaar, and even our military stuff, Agni and Kavach. And so I said, mere ko bhi sochna chahiye. So I'm here to tell you about like my take on India's wisdom stack. Gan Tantra. Gan Tantra ka Gyan Tantra. Right? So it literally means a wisdom system. Gan Tantra means wisdom system. But, and I want to sort of really talk about how we bring a uniquely Indian perspective to how we're going to deploy AI for the common good. So that is what I've been giving some thought to, that, the India stack has been transformative, right? And we're going to hear from Nandan, and we have Chris here. I think it is time to actually frame the India AI stack. Now, the India AI mission has done a great job laying out the pillars. But my thing is, pillars are not a stack. I want to show you the house and frame what this looks like, right? Now, let's go back 3 years. Sam Altman came to Delhi and said, you have $10 million, it's totally hopeless to compete with us. Don't even try to build a foundation model. But then in the AI summit that just concluded a month ago, Imverse demonstrated Bharatiya GPT, which does something that is totally unique. It, 2006-year-old manuscript from Sushruta becomes a multilingual conversational avatar, and Sarvam releases a 105 billion parameter model that's trained from scratch on Indian data. And I was speaking to the founder of Sarvam. He said, here's the problem. If you look at the population, 1 billion people speak Hindi, which is like 1/7 of the world's population. But if you crawl the data on the web to train your foundation models, 0.17% is in Hindi. So we can't rely on ChatGPT and OpenAI to figure this out. We got to do it ourselves, right? So my take is, 3 years later, Altman was right. We didn't try to replicate what they did, but he was wrong also because we found our own way. And I think that is the important perspective. This is not about out-NVIDIAing NVIDIA. This is not about building ChatGPT 2.0. It's about actually applying our jugaad and our ingenuity to figure out how do we do this damn thing 100 times cheaper. And I'll show you how. Okay? Frugal ingenuity. India doesn't copy, it reinvents. And it reinvents at a cost structure that is 10x to 50x lower. Right? We didn't do Visa and MasterCard, we just leapfrogged it with UPI. I still have a stupid 10-digit social security number that gets hacked every 3 months. Right? We don't have biometrics. So Aadhaar reimagined identity. And Sri, you were talking about what do we do with healthcare. Tomorrow we are going to meet MediBuddy, which has basically access to 1 billion people. And he's the first guy to build telehealth. And now they do surgical referrals and a whole bunch of. So the point is, very interesting observation. Constraint is not a weakness. Constraint is a design parameter. And when you use constraint as a design parameter, you really come up, and you apply design thinking to it, you come up with ideas that are completely revolutionary, right? So India is not running after frontier models. That's not the race they're running after. They'll win the applied AI race, and they'll focus on cost per inference, languages served, and very importantly, lives uplifted. So first, let me talk about what we should not do. The anti-playbook. We don't want to be NVIDIA. Let them spend $600 billion on hyperscalers and NVIDIA, because this is decades of IP, massive scale, chip design. You're not competing with Blackwell. We can do the inference race. We don't want to do the foundation model, the infrastructure. And by the way, all the loads are moving to inference anyway. The training, now it's 80 to 90% is inference loads as opposed to training loads, OpEx versus CapEx. Secondly, what we don't want to do is become an AI colony. If we just we are already one of the largest consumers of ChatGPT. By the way, the largest consumers of everything that the US makes. If you look at all the applications, WhatsApp, you name it, Instagram, so on. So the only thing we don't have here is TikTok because the government banned it and we built 20 of our own things. Now we're hearing about micro dramas and all sorts of new things that are coming out. So we can't be an AI colony. Very important to have a sovereign point of view. Because if they turn off, like on the Kargil time, they're like going to turn off the GPS. What are we going to do? So what if they say we'll turn off ChatGPT? We have an interesting administration in place that has, makes random decisions. So they can suddenly say, we don't like India, band karo. What are we going to do? We have to control our own destiny. And the third thing is, GPUs are good. AI mission has 38,000 GPUs, but GPU is not a strategy. GPU is raw material. I'm going to show you what you build out of it. Right? So let me now define this idea of the Gan Tantra. By the way, I had the privilege of being part of the Geo journey. I joined the board in 2015. We launched in 2016, and I finished my 10 years in last March. So I have seen the Geo effect from up close. I want to show you the Geo effect for AI. Right? So first, let me define the idea of the Gan Tantra. It's India's wisdom system, a sovereign, each word is carefully selected, a sovereign AI architecture that puts indigenous intelligence into the hands of every Indian. Democratization, sovereignty, and the uniquely Indian context. So it's affordable enough for the poorest Indian, inclusive enough to include the cacophony of languages that constitute our nation, and sovereign enough to control our destiny. Let me break this down into 5 pillars. By the way, this can complement the AI mission. I've written it like a manifesto. So the manifesto, and I've tried to sort of have Sanskrit words to describe it. The first one is Antyodaya. Antyodaya is a beautiful word. It means the lifting of the last person. Ant ka uday. So the last person first. The farmer, the vendor, the village student, not the corporate boardroom, CXOs, CIOs. Inclusive uplift, first principle. Second principle, radical affordability, frugal innovation. Sulabh. By the way, Sulabh, unfortunately, is shauchalaya. It's the bathroom. But the idea of access and affordability, low compute, data parsimonious, public utility pricing, wisdom as a common good. We used to say roti, kapra, makan, or internet. Now AI is a public utility that needs to be available to everybody. Third, radical diversity. 1,000 tongues. By the way, notice I didn't say 1,000 languages, I said 1,000 tongues. It has to be voice first. It has to be multimodal. It has to be multilingual. Hundreds of dialects. Get rid of the tokenization tax that is 300% to 600% when you're translating Uriya or Bengali or Marathi with the LLMs. Fourth, and this is completely unique, a concept that we call civilizational AI. We have 5,000 years of wisdom. We have so much stuff that is trapped in ancient manuscripts, so many languages, and dead languages, bringing that, encoded. Why don't we sell Ayurveda like Ayurveda is supposed to be straight to the source? Yoga that goes back to the source, mathematics that goes back to Aryabhat, surgery that goes back to Sushruta. That is unique. That's unique data that nobody else has. Right? And fifth is sovereign trust. Right? So it has to be fairness by design because, if you leave people behind and if you violate their data, so data privacy, inclusivity, all that has to be fairness, gender equity. So Antyodaya, Sulabh, Bahubhasha, Parampara, and Vishwas. These are the principles that I would put forth, to create this manifesto. And everything is summarized in this last sentence that the world builds AI to mimic people, India must build AI to uplift them. That's a key difference, right? So let's talk about the radical affordability. So what Geo demonstrated, when we got started, 2016 data prices, $250 per GB. Today, it's like give or take $5 to $10 a GB, 25x reduction. We need the same thing. I actually sat down with Kiran, our CTO, and we did the math on what it's going to take to. One of the things that Geo did, which is very important for you to understand, we never talked about data price per GB. Manoj Modi had a very simple idea. He said, beggar ARPU kya hai? What can the beggar afford on the street? That is the price of data. And we said that is 100 rupees a month for unlimited data. We worked our cost structures backwards. Similarly here, don't talk about $20 a month for ChatGPT. Ask what can you afford? You know what it is? My take is 10 to 20 cents a month for unlimited access to Gen AI. How are you going to do that now? Now you got to work the math. So that gap is again a 100x gap, and we can fix it. Here are 4 levers. First, don't use a bazooka to open a can of peas. You can build smarter models, more parsimonious models. You don't need, 3.5 trillion parameters. Sarvam's 105 billion model with a very intelligent MOE, mixture of experts, where only 10 billion parameters are activated, which means you get a 10x multiplier. By the way, these are things that now OpenAI and Anthropic are also doing, but we can do this efficiently. So that is about building models that are smarter and smaller. And in addition, for many problems, we only need SLMs. We need small language models. So you don't need like this giant, F16 to, blast, or F35. Second is indic tokenizers. This is where we're going to save a lot of money. So our custom tokenizers will cut our tokenization cost 3x to 5x versus the models of the West that are not optimized for our languages, right? So Sarvams is supporting now all 22 languages and is 3x to 5x times more efficient. Third is your cheap access to national compute. Now, we do have to still get GPUs from NVIDIA. There's no way around that. But what we can do there is that we can provide lower cost access, and the India mission is trying to do that. Right? So that's a 3x multiplier. And the fourth thing, which is very interesting, is inference at the edge. See, what have we done at Geo? Cloud PC. There's no need for you to carry my phone has 1 terabyte storage on it and a massive processor. No, if I can move compute to the edge, now all I need is a screen. So our cloud gaming, cloud PC can be run, it's just a screen. Because you are not now building a $1,000 device. That is how we built the Jio Bharat phone at $8. Right? At $8, you can get the Jio Cloud PC. So the same thing, we have to push inference to the edge, and that can give us a 2x to 3x multiplier. Plus, for the high net worth people, you can run the SLMs on the device. So 2 ways to do this. One is the extremely low cost device that's running inference models at the edge, and the other is on device compute for smaller. Now, here's the good news. These 4 things don't combine additively. I'm showing you 100x. 5x times 3x times 3x times 2x equals 90x. It can be done. We have to prove to the world how we are going to provide inference to 1 billion people at 1/100th the cost of the United States. Okay? And in our languages. So now let me propose a national AI stack. This, by the way, is consistent with the AI mission, which has 7 pillars. But this is the 4 layers of the stack. The layer 1 is compute and silicon, right? So this is where you will need to build our own clouds. We can't do away with the chips, but we can build our data centers and our infrastructure because there's some cost involved there too. So compute and silicon, semiconductor, the AI factories. So that's layer 1. Layer 2 is foundation model. By the way, a lot of innovation at this layer. This is where we need to innovate. Whether it's Sarvam, BharatGen, Krutrim, there are 12 companies that have been funded under the India AI mission for this space. Some are vertical, some are small language, some are foundation models. Layer 3 is data and knowledge. We talked about data, right? Chris was talking about we are the ultimate data sandbox for the world. Who's got 1.5 billion people? Right? Look at medical data, look at all this. So I love the idea of the AI Kosh national data sets. Right? 7,000 data sets have been put into public and full access because the startup, just like DPI allowed 1,000 flowers to bloom on top of it, when we build this data set, thousands of startups can bloom. They can have health data, financial data. All of it, of course, is PII stripped and anonymized and so on. crop data for farm building applications for agriculture. So this data and knowledge is unique. By the way, this doesn't exist in the US, at least not at this scale. And then layer 4 is the application. These are the 1,000 flowers that will bloom on top. Healthcare, agriculture, education, AI as a service and so on. So the important insight here is that the India stack digitized payments and identity. The Gan Tantra will digitize intelligence and wisdom. And this, foundation model landscape is taking shape, right? So these are some of the examples of the companies and the approaches that they are taking. And they're all taking different approaches to optimize it, but I think that there is a lot we can do on this front. And by the way, we should have our own DeepSeek moment. DeepSeek showed how you can do what OpenAI does. Now, of course, it was semi-legal, with distillation and all of that. But there are ways in which they showed mixture of experts. They showed some other very interesting strategies to reduce the cost of training these models. That's what we have to. We can learn from the mistakes that were made. We can learn from the Moore's law and really get ahead. Just like we did in, we didn't do 2G, 3G, 4G. We just went 5G. We didn't do desktop, laptop. We just went to smartphones. Similarly, we don't need to go through all of the expensive training investments that were made. We can learn next generation, right? Another very interesting thing that I was telling you about a unique model, and by the way, here, disclosure, I'm an advisor to this company because I was so fascinated by what they're doing. This was Inverse, where they're taking 50 million manuscripts. These are on palm leaves and parchments in 64 Indic languages, and they have built a unique data set. And then this is being digitized. They built a whole pipeline from extracting to cleaning to digitizing, building avatars. And this is what I'm going to Nagpur after this to meet with them and saying, boss, now make products. The Ayurveda product, the yoga product. They built something called Sanstapana GPT. मेरे को word भी नहीं पता है. Sanstapana GPT is architecture. Temple architecture is a lot of wisdom. Then they built so that I think is a very, very unique idea. And as a startup, imagine the Prime Minister on Man Ki Baat doing a 2-minute demo of your product. So he did that, and I was like, whoa, what a pitch, right? From the ultimate pitch man. Anyway, so now let's talk about use cases, because, the India mission does a really good job on the supply side. I'm a marketing guy. I want to talk about the demand side, right? These are 4 grand challenges. The 4 most important verticals. And we saw some of them represented here. We saw healthcare, right? 1 doctor per 1,500 people. 70% of specialists are in cities, as Sri, you were talking about. Nobody wants to go to the villages. 160,000 rural centers with no diagnostic capability. That's 1 grand challenge. Second grand challenge is agriculture. A lot of people have moved to the cities, but India still exists in the villages, right? 600 million people depend on farming. And this is subsistence farming, less than 2 hectares. They don't have access to information on pest, weather, or market prices. Third, education. 250 million students in government schools, severe teacher shortages, quality of teachers, quality of school is poor. And fourth is G2C, government to citizen. Billions of citizen transactions, weeks of delay for routine services, language barriers. So these are the 4 biggest opportunities that I see. Notice I didn't put financial services here. That would be the next thing. But these are, to me, the 4 greatest challenges. Now let's look at what's happening. Who's already solving this? This is already happening. AI for citizen. In healthcare, whether it's radiology being read and chest x-rays and telehealth, or Niramai doing breast cancer screening, or Vadvani AI cough-based TV screening. By cough, you can actually do the voice markers and figure out the diagnostics. In agriculture, Dehat has scaled up quite nicely for crop advisory, satellite imagery, farmer advisory platforms, and education. Obviously we started with Khan Academy and so on, but now you have a whole bunch of really interesting educational startups, because I think AI I'm a teacher, I'll tell you that it's going to completely dramatically reinvent pedagogy, allow you to personalize education, to provide personalized tutoring, and at a level that we have never been able to do before. And then, of course, on the government side, we talked about some of the funding that has gone to these 12 companies. So the point is the efforts have started, and when you build the stack, we're just going to get we're just getting warmed up here, right? Let me conclude with a quote from the Granth Sahib. It said, "Kita pasao eko kawao tiste hoy lakh daryao," which means from one word, the entire creation came. From it flowed 100,000 rivers. So we need one foundational stack, 100,000 rivers of intelligence flowing to every Indian. And AI does a decent job of making the picture, right? But it has to be done in their language, at their price point, for their problem. Let us not lose sight of how India always solves problem. I like to say India is unique in 3 ways. We have massive problems, nation scale, and a lot of ingenuity. So nowhere in the world do you see this class of problems or this class of solutions and this class of ingenuity. So when we do this, we will be able to build the Gan Tantra for the Gan Tantra. So this is our vision forward, and I hope to see this in 20 years, that we have actually redefined what AI does. And AI just doesn't automate. AI doesn't just replicate humans. AI uplifts 1.4 billion people. Thank you very much.
Woo! Mohan, stand up there. Ladies and gentlemen, was this the best speech you've heard on AI? Look at that. Amazing. We captured a moment where someone has delivered a vision and a way to get India forward. So Mohan, this is a masterclass that we've never heard before. I'm sure your students who are here are very proud of you to just see what kind of impact you make. And there are a couple of AI sessions today as well. Sarvam is there this afternoon. Yeah. I hope you'll go sit in on that session to get them forward as well. And this morning, there's another session in AI. But there's also sessions on 6 topics in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. So go to all these sessions. It's a coffee and tea break, and then the breakouts. So thank you, everyone.